Welcome to episode 6 of Uncharted Your Sidekick for Life, a Founding Up podcast. In every episode, we create a platform for Gen Z people to share some of the things they experience and struggle with. Then we invite a guest mentor on the podcast to answer questions and offer them advice. Uncharted is a roundtable type discussion interspersed with clips from Gen Z. I'm Natalie Peyton, one of the guides on this podcast journey, and I'm joined by Dan Dillard and Dr. Leon Vanstone. Our guest mentor today is Titus Jumper, a serial entrepreneur with a name as epic as his story. From overcoming homelessness to managing multiple companies and being a husband and father of 6, Titus has extensive experiences to share. Our Gen Z contributors, who were interviewed by Anais Schmidt and myself, include brother-sister and co-founder duo Rafaela and Luke, who describe their path to success as being by all means necessary. Ty, who discusses his struggle with time management. Mariela, who shares the resources she seeks out because she doesn't have a mentor right now. And Jai, who admits she definitely respects the advice from people without college degrees. Let's listen.
Excited to embark on our next episode, episode 6.
6.
Wow, this is really cool. Our special guest today, Titus Jumper. Dude, what an epic name.
Totally.
Yeah, dude. I've been blessed with a couple things. That's one of them.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well,
I didn't have much say in that one.
Right. And you're like, thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I am Dan Dillard, media entrepreneur and co-founder of Founding Up, among some other things. And I want to start with your...
Hey, everybody. I'm Natalie. I'm an actor, comedian, podcast person, Natalie.
I love that.
One day that will get old. That day was not today. And I'm Leon Vanstone, rocket scientist, storyteller, and entrepreneur.
So, since the audience knows more about us, because we've been doing this for a bit, let's talk about you, Titus, some of your background, your history, what you do now, and then we'll dive into like how you got there.
So I guess people would consider me a serial entrepreneur. I have 5 different companies at this point, a nonprofit, so that would make 6 different activities I have going on.
Well,
but
so you're not busy.
I have 6 kids too, and a wife. So I would consider my life fairly hectic. It's a full life, which is good. I kind of started from scratch, at 17, 18, 19. My dad passed away when I was 15. Mm-hmm. Late teens, early 20s, I ended up homeless with my mom and my brother. And it, just kind of gave me a little extra fuel to the fire to realize that it's not necessarily what the cards were dealt to me, but how I wanted to play the cards that I had. So I kind of just overcame them with an insane amount of work. And I one of my very first lessons, I think, that stuck with me, I was listening to a podcast, similar situation. Mm-hmm. And he said, if you work hard through your 20s, you can start earning in your 30s. And I kind of realized that to be true for my life.
Yeah.
20s, I didn't make tons of money, but I was working I had 2 jobs, basically. I had my job during the day to kind of like try to pay my bills as much as I could because I was married pretty young. And then at night, I would start hustling my business. And it took me several businesses to get one to work. But once I finally got one to work, I was able to start spinning things off. And maybe that's why I have 6 different jobs, because I could never figure out how to just have one.
Right. No, that's very cool. As you are aware, our podcast is all about mentorship. It's Uncharted and the name of the podcast, Uncharted, because life is uncharted, right? And mm-hmm. so your sidekick for life. So our goal here is to provide mentorship. We've gone out and we've talked to a lot of Gen Z guests. So we've got a correspondent, Anais, and I know Natalie's been out as well, and Leon's been out as well, talking to some of these individuals that are facing different things. They're facing different challenges. And so what we strive to provide is just kind of input, advice as to what they're facing. And we use our individual experiences. So you've got one of the things that was fascinating in our conversation at dinner last night, and also just kind of getting to know you, is everybody gets through life differently, and they've got different paths, and they face different challenges. So what you just stated is kind of a different path. And individuals out there need to know that it's not just one boxed path that gets you places. You're gonna get through life, one way or another, and you got to figure it out. But a lot of it is that fire in the belly and what causes that, and there's different circumstances. So I'm really interested to learn more of your take on some of the things that we're going to some of the questions that we're going to address because of your unique perspective and take on what you've been through. So
Cool.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
I'm
So
excited too.
let's dive into this first question. So we have, let's see.
Really interesting.
I hate when the
background.
computers do that.
I know. So
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
There we go.
There's
Hey, the rocket
there's
scientist
a
advice,
rocket
man.
science.
Restart your computer.
That's why I have a co-founder like
Genius,
that.
man. Love it.
Dude, that works like 90% of the time.
It really does.
actually.
So here we go. First question.
Now that you started VlogMe and that you took this path, what keeps you up at night?
We've gotten a bit comfortable with being uncomfortable, which I think is a good thing because it allows us to take risks and it allows us to not, lose hope if things aren't working out your way. It just, makes you think, okay, let's pivot. Let's figure out how to make it work instead. And so it is scary. It's definitely something that a lot of like my peers or a lot of people like around my age aren't familiar with at all, because for them, if they want to go into a venture, they could go back home to their parents if everything goes wrong. But our family is 100% in this. And so we're each other's lifeline, and it's exciting, but it's also pretty scary sometimes. But our family motto is that we're not dead yet. So if we're not dead, then how bad can
That's
it be,
a great
right?
motto.
We know that as long as we just keep pushing and we have the attitude of, by all means necessary, then eventually we'll get there. It's just a matter of time, and it might be really hard now, but we're able to do this during the hardest part. And so I just think about, when more and more things start going our way and we're building up more momentum, it's like, this is going to get really fun. So, we're really excited for the work ahead as well.
That resonated with me last night after our conversation about your background, and also I think this is just a powerful message that a lot of Gen Z needs to hear, because you're going to have business owners, you're going to have people that take off and do things, but it's this attitude that needs to happen if you're going to go build something, because it is taxing, it is trying, it is hard, but we're also human, and for me, being human is like being superhuman, because you can actually do anything you want. We can actually do anything you set your mind to, and that's just not something that is said. That's a real thing. Anyway, that's what I took away. Thoughts?
I just think they're so relentless, these two. And they said by all means necessary. And I'm sure you had that same feeling when you were shifting your story around. You did whatever it took, but morning and night you were working, and that's what I see them doing, and that's what I strive to do. I'm reading the book Relentless right now, so it's helping shift my perspective to really own my behavior and own my mission in life, and be aligned with my values and everything I do. And that's definitely what they're doing, which I think is great.
Yeah. Thoughts, Leon?
One of the things I think that's come across to me as I've gone through life is just, you need a certain number of opportunities, because you'll probably fail most of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there are a lot of stories in life, but the one I never hear is, so I knew exactly what I wanted to do from the day I was born, and I went to university and just absolutely blew through that, aced everything, got my first job, was incredibly successful for 5 years. It was super fulfilling. And now I'm CEO of the company and I've just been absolutely killing it. Like, no one ever says that.
Yeah.
Right? It's, I did this and that went wrong and I went over here. Like you almost need to fail. Like, it's like failure is part of the process. It's like two sides of the same coin. Like success always lives, on the top of a strong foundation of failure. And I think about when you do weights at the gym, right? And you do it to failure. You don't just then beat yourself up. You understand it's part of the process, right? Or when you do homework, right, and you get them wrong, you understand because getting things wrong and screwing up is part of that process to getting to success. Yeah. And, I saw this a lot when I used to teach at universities. These kids it's like we've trained them. University says, here is your one chance to succeed. And if you screw it up, you're out.
Right.
And that isn't life at all. So
Right.
I don't know, that's what I heard. They're just like, we're going to keep trying and we're going to keep failing. And that's okay, because at some point you won't and you'll break through and now you're successful. And that's just how society views this. You're either a failure or you're successful, as if they aren't really two sides of that same coin. But I mean, love to hear your...
No, I mean, that was really cool, because for me, failure was a key part of my path. And honestly, failing in every part's like breaking a muscle down. There's a lot of pain in that process. And something that they said that kind of hit home for me is they have like no other options, right? Like when you're moving forward in life, whether it's in your relationship, whether it's in your health, whether it's in business, there's going to be a lot of pain in that process. And to have like my first mentors talked about, don't have a plan B. I would not 100% agree with that, because you want to always have like options to move forward in one direction. Because if you only have one path, you're overly committing to that path.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is like, if you're conquering new territory, Cortez, when he was conquering Latin America, he burned his ships.
Right.
Because he wanted to send a signal to his troops, like, hey, we're going this direction. There's no way going backwards.
Right.
And that
was pretty motivating, I would think.
It would be motivating. Yeah. The only thing that I had in here with them that I've been very thankful to have in my life is I've always had somebody kind of helping me through the uncharted territory of life. Right. So like in my first mentor kind of came in my life when I was actually selling Cutco, which was my first job after I did construction. I started my first job at 14 and I did mostly labor. But my first skill job was at 19. I jumped in Cutco for Vector Marketing and I was selling basically kitchen knives, like high-end kitchen knives. And I did that for 2.5 years. And I didn't really make enough money, but I did learn a lot of skills. And that's where I learned, you work hard in your 20s, you can earn in your 30s. And, there's a lot of wisdom that came along those.
Yeah. Mentorship is key. Yeah. Mentorship is key.
Yeah. Because you have to have a North Star, otherwise you're going to make a lot more mistakes than you could potentially, you can avoid a lot of mistakes if you have a North Star.
If you listen. Because the other side of it is like a lot of people are like, I'm going to figure it out myself, and you're going to hit your head against the wall, which we're going to do anyway. But there's less of that if you have someone like a mentor that's like showing you different ways. There's so much value in that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely the guy that will hear something and then try it out the wrong way, probably 5 to 6 times before I'm like, you know what, that was a good idea.
That's just practice.
Yeah.
Just practice.
You're like, you know what, that sounds like a great idea, but
I'm going to do it better. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you know what?
But at least the lesson will stick, know?
Yeah.
And it'll come back around eventually.
Yeah.
100%. I enjoyed your point about the North Star there, right? Because life is kind of a wonder. Right, it's not a straight line, but if you have a direction you're vaguely wandering in, you will get somewhere. But if you don't have a direction that's kind of guiding you, you'll just wander around, and it's very easy to go nowhere.
Yeah,
in that sense,
aimlessly.
Yeah,
I think this message was really important, and I'm going to walk carefully here, but it's really important because as I'm going to speak as a dad, of a 21-year-old, right? In what I've noticed that her generation has faced that I didn't face was a lot of social media and what I've noticed in a lot of the social media is that it's not real. A lot of it is not real. Right. And so, but it makes you feel inferior that it is real. And in that thought process, obviously there's emotions that involved there. There's feelings of worthlessness. It just seems much harder because like these people are doing that and I'm not there yet. And what I heard from them is that, they like have blinders on to their vision, to their mission. And this stuff that is just noise doesn't get in their way. And I thought that was an important thing that I picked up from. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
I think you're right.
Social media is crazy right now. We experience all of ourselves. right? Our highs, our lows, our mids, and a lot of the times you're in a low. Whereas in social media is all about your heights of your life plus 20% because of filters and different types of ways, right? So you're unfairly comparing yourself to another individual, and it's really easy to feel defeated. Like for them, I mean, there's twice when I was 20 and I had to like consolidate like 3 different credit cards because I was paying rent, buying groceries, and like when creditors start to call you and you're trying to be a winner, it doesn't feel like it,
Right.
you know? But if you can reframe it, I literally always told myself, well, at least they can't kill me and eat me.
Right.
They may
Not at
scare the
rock
heck out
bottom.
of me.
Right,
Yeah, they
right.
can't kill me and eat me, because if you reframe your failure to make it livable, manageable, then it's not defeating, because you have to learn to live with that pain. You have to learn to live with the failure without becoming the failure.
Right.
And it's really difficult. Like it's very difficult to do. But if you start comparing yourself to everybody else's successes, oh, this guy's ripped, this guy's whatever, or this, girl's this way, it's going to make it much more difficult for yourself than you would have to.
Reminds me of a room that we were looking at for podcasting, and there's a green screen behind us. Oh, you can put any cityscape behind it,
in Italy,
and these people will think you're there. And I'm like, that's something that's being used, right? So like it makes it seem like individuals are traveling the world. Not that they're not, but there's a lot more of that out there, and so I really appreciate that point for sure. And I think that's what I appreciate from here and your story as well.
I just want to share real quickly, both of you are so spot on to bring up the social media, because that was their original venture, is to create a social media app where you can only record in app, sort of like Be Real, I think you've mentioned before, but no filters, because all of their peers were falling into depression because of, and they show before and afters of like TikTok filters where you can have big lips and tan skin, and then in theirs it just shows authentic videos. And believe it or not, authenticity performs a lot better on social media than the
I think it's
factored
been
images.
starting to get popular again, which is great.
Right?
Good movement.
Really cool. Thanks for that. All right, let's move on to the next one. We've got Ty here, and he's in college now, and he's talking about time management as a thought process. And I thought that would be something that really great for us to discuss, because 6 businesses, 6 kids, right? So
You feel like you are not challenged enough at the moment?
Honestly, yeah. Like my classes are hard, but I've like figured out how to attack them in the correct way, and I've been doing good, and they haven't felt super challenging.
Well, then, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. But then if you were to add something to your plate right now, where you said that there is a little bit of difficulty with time management, how would you imagine yourself handling, let's say, starting your own business?
Honestly, I don't know. I would probably just find any time I could to start putting time into it. I mean, that's about all you can do, is start and actually put time into it and put effort into it. But I honestly don't know if I have enough time right now for that to be a realistic thing to do.
I see. And when you think about the future, what concerns you the most about your future?
Maybe if I chose the right thing to study, but I think I did. I mean, I guess we'll see when I get a job in a few years, but I mean, you never know if you're going to actually enjoy what you're doing until you get to the actual work setting.
I heard a lot in that. One, I look at it different ways, from entrepreneur, but also parent. How many times, I don't know if your kids are old enough to be talking about, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time. There is this kind of scarcity mentality about time. As a parent, I've heard that. And I always come back with, we all have the same amount of time. There is and I forget who said this, but essentially, if you need something done, give it to the busiest person, right?
My grandmother said that.
I think Steve Jobs said it. I think several people did it.
Yeah.
But it speaks to that we make and we create time if it's important enough, right? And so what I heard here was a few things. One was, I don't know if I have time, and that is potentially preventing him from, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So there's all this thought that goes into the time. And then also, am I spending my time in the right place? Am I studying the right things? Because this is a gamble for me. Like I don't like all this energy I'm putting into time is one thing, money's another into university, and it's a gamble. Will I end up accomplishing after all of this time and energy? Will I end up accomplishing a good career out of it? So those are the things I heard. Really a lot of thought. I mean, that was very thought provoking. What do you guys think?
I think there's a healthy amount of self-reflection that can be done before it becomes like you're doubting every step you take. And that's something I'm working on, is just having conviction with what I say and do. And he's in the perfect spot to wonder, am I doing the right thing? But this is where mentorship comes in. Somebody with the North Star that can guide them and tell them, yeah, you're on the right track, as long as you feel peace about it. I think that's also super important, to have inner peace about what you're doing. But yeah, he's very intuitive, I guess.
Leon, did you ever feel like this?
Yeah, right now. Yeah, I mean, I suppose my two thoughts would be, one, life is very failure tolerant, right? And again, I think this is a problem with the way the education system works. It's not failure tolerant. You fail, you're a failure, you're out, you repeat a year, right? Like life's very failure tolerant. Doesn't matter if you picked the wrong choice, whatever that even means. Just don't give up. If you give up, you're screwed, right? But if he keeps applying himself, working on whatever, his life will work out. Right. And so, and I think sort of going back to his piece about time management, there is sort of a strange fallacy there, right? Where like, on the one hand, I agree with you, right? If you care about something, you'll make time for it, right? But time, the ultimate currency, the only thing all of us really have, right, is still, 24 hours in a day. We all have the same amount of time. There's a budget. So depending on what you're doing, it's right to say, am I spending my time doing the right thing? But then invest the time, spend the budget, right? Versus like some people are like, oh, I'm going to go to uni and I'm going to start a business. You're like, man, I mean, just like, that's probably not, you can try that. And you can, you don't have to, like you said, you don't have to sleep too much when you're young. But there is some amount, there are only 24 hours in a day. And so some part of me is like, invest the time, spend the budget. You want to be at uni, then go. Right. Put all that, like, don't half invest, like don't put half your budget. If I'm like, hey, you got $1,000, you can spend a day. What are you doing with that? Right. It's all in whatever you're doing. You're all in 100%. So it's like, are you at uni? Then be all in. Like live that, there's so much opportunity there between the clubs and the school and all these extracurriculars and everything. So I don't know, this like, oh, well, I need to start a business and I have to be at uni. No, just like invest in the thing you want to do. Spend your time doing that. And hey, when you're 18, 4 years feels like a lot of time. Now I'm 37. 4 years doesn't feel like that long, like repeating a year when I was 18 would have been catastrophic for me personally. And now at 37, I'm like, it would not have made a jot of difference in my life. Not a piece. Anyway, that's what I think.
Yeah, I just had a light bulb. Uni means university.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So, like, you've been saying that for the last 2 days.
On the other side of the pond.
Yeah. Uni, huh? Yeah, I mean, time is definitely a limiting factor. I mean, I would say that's one of the scarcest resources we have, to be honest with you. So choose wisely what you do with it. I've noticed a lot of my friends, I'm 34, spent their 20s living it up. They were partying, they were, having multiple relationships. And I've had two, and I was my first wife. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. And now my current wife. So I'm very focused on, very specific things. When I was 20, I don't know why I can't do this right now anymore, but, I could sleep like 4 hours a night. And, I wouldn't say that's healthy for your mental health, because I'm pretty sure that's a lot of the reasons why my first, relationship failed, because I think that put some mental health, like borderline, maybe even bipolar in there, because I was manic, to be honest with you. But I got really good sleeping for 5 to 6 minutes. Like a power nap, I could kill it, but I hallucinated all the time. I really did, because I was so sleep deprived. So what I would say is, being relentless. Like my story, I wouldn't say is the only story, right? There is very unique. Like I have a friend that is much more successful than I, and only a couple years older. And and he's much more strategic in his success, whereas I just had to put in some raw effort because I had no idea what I didn't know. But yeah, I mean, time is very limited. So if you're doing it just to have a good time and partying, I would, especially if you're 20s, man, because it takes like time, you know, the habits of life, it takes time to build on each other. Like a fit body doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It takes a long time to get there, you know, and success takes time. It is what it is. There's not a lot of shortcuts.
And I've always thought that really weird. It's like you see someone that can draw really well and people are like, oh man, I wish I had that talent. You're like, well, then start drawing. They weren't born with a pencil, you know, or you see a bodybuilder, you understand that took years in the gym. But if you see a successful person, and part of it is branding, part of it is social media, like successful people were always successful. They woke up successful, you know, it's this kind of like this sell you have to do. But it's this idea that success doesn't take years and years and years. It's a compound thing, right? You get a little bit better, you get a little bit better, you get a little bit better. You do that for 10 years.
Yeah, and you kind of have to fake it a lot of times, man. Like I remember just like 2-3 years ago, I am not the same person today that I was 3 years ago. And this is like when I really started to take off because I was kind of stuck at a, you know, small business, like just me and one person type of thing for like 6 years. And then I kind of had a rocket ship experience and I had to grow into it. But as I was growing, I had to like fake it. There was 2 years ago, as recently as 2 years ago, I was starting my fourth company, and
as you do,
as I do. But I had significant, for about 3 months, I felt super insecure and insignificant around my executive staff. I did not feel that I was the right person to be leading the company. And this is, mind you, I've actually made it. Like most people would have said at that point, everybody around me, like I still live in the same house. I was driving pretty much the same car. No, I bought my truck by that point. I love trucks. So I bought my first truck at that point. But besides that, my lifestyle didn't really change that much. But I felt very insecure next to my CMO, next to my CFO, next to my chief operating officer. And I'm like, you guys are seniors in the, you know, 45, 50 years and 20 years of experience and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, why are you looking to me to lead? And it took me 3 months of being on daily conference calls with these people to realize, like, you know what? No, I do deserve to be here. You know, and when I finally like embraced it, kind of gave me a lot more peace. You know, I'm not sure if I hope to find peace one day, but it's a hard thing to find, especially if you have a lot of stuff going on. And I think defining what peace really means is important. You're going to have to fake it for a minute, but once you embrace it, it can be pretty exciting.
It is refreshing to hear when successful people admit to experiencing imposter syndrome and like feeling like they don't belong. You know what I mean? I'm also 34. Are you 1990? Yeah. People who look up to successful people are always wondering, like, how did they make it? How did they feel so comfortable in their own skin? But there was clearly a journey to get there.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, every life is uncharted. And that's the whole reason why we're building
Bringing
this.
It home,
bringing it home. Every life is uncharted. And so there is a place, even today, where we're all facing something new. And what does tomorrow look like? And it's going to be different. And so, but it is what builds confidence over time. And the more gray you have, what builds confidence over time is knowing that the failures, I made it through that. I made it through that. I made it through that. And then over time, that fake it because I haven't failed enough. You're like, I failed enough that this is just another cliff that I've got to go over and it'll be okay. And so there's that, just the failure is what builds the faith over time, right? So that and many other things. But,
you know, to throw something on top of that, right? I always like to maintain that imposter syndrome is a sign of growth. Because the way you enact massive change is to think about the person you want to be and start acting as that person, even though you know inside you're not doing that. And so feeling like you're pretending, feeling like that you aren't the person you're trying to be is entirely natural. Feeling like looking inside yourself and saying, but I'm not really this person that I'm pretending to be, is completely normal. That's how you enact those kind of enormous changes, is by being the person that you're not.
It's exactly true.
And that's exactly how that's natural to feel like that. Oh, I don't this isn't really who I am. I'm pretending. I'm going to get found out. No, that's the first that's the first part of growth.
Significant growth.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's very
If
natural
slow,
to
you
feel
don't
like
feel that way. Yeah.
It's very natural to feel like that. And so, again, imposter syndrome is growth. It's not failure. And I think it's very hard. I think it's very natural to be like, oh, I'm a liar. No, as long as your intentions are good, as long as you're not just lying to openly deceiving people, as long as your intentions are to grow into the person you want to be, imposter syndrome's just another one of those things you got to push through. It's just another piece of discomfort.
Very cool.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Not just in business though, but in every area of your life.
Yeah.
Like there's often times that I feel like I look at my wife and like I hang out with her and there's many times that I'm like, dude, I don't deserve this woman to be in my life, and but she is, and she chooses to be there with me. And I think that we both have a very similar feeling. Like she always says to be real, right? She wants to be real. I've noticed though that what being real means is like a sliding scale, right? Like what do you want to be real to? Do you want to be real to your old self, your current self, or the one that you want to become in the future? But if you want to choose who you want to become in the future, like I was saying, the people that when I first started hiring these executives on my this other company, they all made more in their salary than I made ever.
Right.
There was a couple of them that I was paying more per year than I've, by that time I started making a decent amount of money, but my entire 20s, they would make more in 3 months than I made my entire 10 years, right?
Wow.
Of being 20 years old. So I started, of course you're going to feel inferior to that, but yeah. It's imposter syndrome, you said?
Yeah. So when you feel like you're the imposter in the room, that you don't deserve to be there, that everybody else is talented and you're the one that doesn't know anything. And then you just, you kind of get this like you're the imposter in the room.
Yeah.
You're pretending everybody else is an expert and you're an idiot. And somehow some bureaucratic mistake has somehow gotten you into this room and you shouldn't really be there, right?
Yeah.
It's super common. Called imposter syndrome, yeah.
I think if you feel that way, though, you also can experience gratitude on the other side of it. Because once you become the person that you really wanted, or once it happened, or like you have the fit body and you're like, you can be grateful instead of thinking like, oh, I deserve it. Like entitlement is to me one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in people.
Yeah.
I hate when somebody is entitled for anything, and I think us as, let's say call us Americans, we're probably one of the most entitled populations on earth that's ever existed. But at the same time, like entitlement in an individual is humility, generosity, kindness. But my favorite character traits are somebody that's humble and somebody that's grateful, because usually great gratitude comes from humility. Sorry.
100%.
Off on a tangent.
No, I completely agree with that. I'm glad that you brought that up. Glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people get really successful and then forget, they held on to that imposter syndrome and they lost it, or because they were faking it so much that they and then they weren't grateful, right? They started doing dumb things because they were trying to build up this life around them, spending $250,000 on a stupid party that means nothing.
Right. That people forget next week.
Exactly. Like it might have been a rager, but it's so dumb. And I've realized that if you don't have the gratitude on the other side of it, you start doing really weird things.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. All right, let's move on to
Mariela. You have a mentor that you talk to, that you reach out to ask questions?
I unfortunately don't. I just kind of wing it every day, or like I'll look it up on Google, YouTube, I don't know, TikTok at this point.
Yeah.
If I have specific questions that I don't know.
I do the same thing, but do you ever worry about the truth of it? If we're finding our information on social media or Google, do you ever wonder, is this true though?
For sure. I definitely wonder. I try it. Sometimes just one simple question, I look up 10 different sources.
But I thought everything on the internet was true.
100%.
Someone's
Believe
misled.
everything you read.
Especially the Founding Up Uncharted podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
That is the single source of truth.
I love it. Yeah, the whole message here obviously is, I feel like mentorship, right? Mentorship has changed my world, and I didn't learn true mentorship until, I've had mentors, but I didn't really embrace it until I was 40. And then when I started the magazine and I interviewed 300 entrepreneurs and just felt that value, my entire world changed. It's like I went from inside the city. I think Dan Graham said this, like you're at the ground level of the city and you go to a mountain, you see everything. Oh, this is how the world works.
And you also know every restaurant owner in Austin, which is a perk.
That's a perk. But no, life looks way different. And that was so important to me that built the magazine around it, built podcasts around it. We're talking about this. We're building Founding Up around it because I wanted everyone to experience what I experienced and the wisdom that came from all that knowledge, because it took me 40 years to figure that out. And so we're hoping to share that. And so I'm glad that you asked that question to someone who's in their 20s, right? And kind of get that light bulb going to that mentorship. And I think partly, personally, I always thought, going back to the imposter syndrome, I always thought that I wasn't important enough to take someone else's successful, their time to spend on me. I was like, I got to figure this out. I'm just not there. And what I realized was completely different, especially here in Austin. Started asking questions. I started asking these entrepreneurs for, hey, would you grab a cup of coffee? I just want to learn more about you. And they were more than willing to do that. I never got a no. It was always yes. I may have gotten one no, but it was like maybe later. But it was all yes, and people want to give back and share. And so I think that's an important piece to kind of introduce. So if you're young and you're feeling like entrepreneurs or anybody you look up to doesn't have time, I'd say try it. Ask, because it will change your life. Anyway, my 2 cents.
I mean, I would even reframe that slightly, right? Almost, we were talking about this earlier, right? Most people who have been successful realize that success has come off the back of somebody else's mentorship, many people's mentorship, and are actively looking for those opportunities to give back to the right mentee or protege or whatever you want to call them. So not only are important people normally willing to help you, they actually want to help you. Yeah. They would love that opportunity to give someone the same life-changing experience that they had. And so it's not even just like, I'm not worth it. Like, you are to some extent helping them by asking them for help, because people want, it's just very human to want to give back. And something that I think, a lot of successful people struggle with is, like, as soon as you become very successful and very rich and everything else, man, the number of people that ever humanly touch you goes through the floor. You don't touch important people. You don't hug them. You don't pat them on the back. You don't say, great job, right? But they're still people. They still need that, right? And so successful people want that human connection. They want to help people. They want to be able to say, great job, and want to hear people say, thank you. And I don't know, they're helping, you're helping them by asking for help. I don't know. I think that gets lost, in a sense. So that's just my
great point.
2 cents.
I think about when I've been approached, and I always try to give back. And I think about my daughter, I'm always like, here are the cheat codes. Here are all the places that I messed up at.
Up, down,
and
down.
Don't do this. Right. Here's the cheat codes. And so it's like this, like storytelling over, that's how humanity learns. It's just kind of telling these stories of what has happened, experiences, and here's how I learned these things. Now go and explore and be better and get there faster. It's just this human nature. So I really love that. Thoughts?
I definitely say having a person in your life that can help guide is really important. Also to keep you real. It's actually really weird that you brought up like the whole successful thing and physical touch, or you do get isolated for some reason. And that's, I've literally been talking to my wife about that over the last couple of weeks. Like, you kind of start to isolate yourself, but then you still want that connection. And I've been talking with my wife and a couple other people, even on the flight out here with Seth, that you really want to be careful with who you're associating with. Right. So for me, I started to realize, like, if you walk in and you're the least fit person in the room, chances are you're about to get more fit.
Right.
If you walk into a room and your association is all very successful people financially, chances are you're going to be pretty successful financially eventually,
Mhm.
you know? And, you know, so it's not, and who is it? I was listening to a parenting podcast yesterday, and he said the most impactful and the most influential people that will be on your kid's life are not the parents. It's actually the parents of the kids they're hanging out with.
Mm.
And that 100% rings true to me. I remember my basketball coach, the lessons he taught me. I remember my football coach, the lessons he taught me. Do I remember what my dad talked to me about? One or two things.
Right.
My mom, one or two things, you know, but like it is very funny or interesting that people want to give back. One, I definitely say like time's limited. I spent 2 days coming here. I will tell you for a fact, I have not spent a night in a hotel on a work trip in like 2 years. Even if I'm doing a New York, I red eye out, I bang out 4 to 5 meetings and I come home the same day because my time is valuable and my time I want to choose to spend it is around my kids. But Seth, my kids and my wife, and then, you know, the people that are dear to me. But like Seth was talking about coming out here and the you know, a little bit about what you guys do. And I'm like, that's worth it. I'll spend 2 days, you know, one night, which is very rare for me to do. But yeah, mentorship is an important thing. And I think both sides of the aisle, you know, if you're really desperate, if you're seeking for information, you really want to improve in a life, there will be people that are coming around you. Just like back in the day, there's a big thing called law of attraction. Right. And I will say there is a higher power that guides the universe, and I believe in God, but there's a higher power that you can actually call on within yourself. And I've noticed that if you start thinking about it, just like my wife and I talking about the law of association, same week, the week after that, we were talking and having that conversation, somebody came into my life that's been in my life for 3.5 years. And he literally said, I want to have a dinner with you once a month. And this guy is uber successful compared to me. So I think if you are talking through things and desiring things, like, you know,
the sort of manifesting,
speak it to existence.
It's a very weird thing that it does come around. And I think mentors are something that is actually not as hard to come by because there are a lot out there that I think it's the students are more needed than the mentor, because the mentors are there. Like I guarantee you, unless you're like super isolated in life, which in America it's hard to be, they're going to come around you.
Yeah. No.
You just got to want it and you got to seek it.
Well, and if you
don't want it and seek it, they ain't coming.
And you've got to try a few too. You know, we were talking earlier,
exactly.
you were mentoring someone because you kind of saw a little bit of yourself in them and you kind of saw how you could help them. And you do need to talk to a few mentors before maybe you'll kind of click with one of them as well, you know?
Yeah, it's like a personality thing, but they also, a lot of times mentors are there for a season, you know, to teach you certain lessons. And then you got to be willing to let them go. Like for me, I've been able to, like, I held on to one of my very first mentors became a very deep father figure to me. And because I was seeking for the father, right? Mine passed away. And I grabbed onto this guy and he was an amazing dude. Love him to death. I don't talk to him too much anymore, just because our lives kind of went each other's way. But I held on to him for a little too long,
right? And
it kind of held me back. So I would say that mentors are there. They want to help you, but you also will have an instinct within yourself when there's time to be guided. But I don't think that's the issue. I think most people just need to start reaching out.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. All right, let's jump into this next one. I picked this one especially because, and you asked about advice from people that haven't followed the traditional path.
If you could meet somebody who didn't go to college but was super successful, and you could get advice from them, would you respect it and take it, like even though they didn't have a college degree?
Absolutely. I feel like I graduated in 2018. It's 2024. I'm a freshman in college. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, of course, just because you didn't go to school doesn't mean that you lack things mentally or lack knowledge or anything like that. I feel like knowledge comes with experience, life experiences, stuff like that. So even without a degree, it's not like I can't take something from them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely respect it. I do feel like if I was saying, like, asking a question about more so psychology, sociology, something more structured, I would ask someone with a degree because they know the structures of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
think that this is an important thing to talk about, because just as we're used to society pushing you through a box of education and you got to get the degree, and it's just this societal pressure, there is this thing that affects, and I know I went through it, the imposter syndrome. Like, I didn't get all the education that person did, or that person did. And then to see the other side of life, like personally, and I think we're a really great representation here. I mean, you've got people that went to college, got their degree. You got people that became a doctor. You got entrepreneurs.
Don't do it.
You got people that did part education and then kind of partly chased entrepreneurship. And I found that it took me a while to be okay with that. It took me, like, I launched businesses and everything else, but I always like felt that imposter syndrome. Are my clients going to ask me about my particular thing and my degree? And it took me a while to figure out that there are that it takes all kinds to make the world go round. And there's certain people that don't have the patience to sit in that setting, but they want to go live life and explore it, and they'll do it a different way, but you still gain these experiences and knowledge. And so my particular path is, I did what we're teaching through Founding Up. I went and carved out the education I needed to get where I wanted to go. And so I wanted to go into finance, and I took all the classes I needed to, because I knew what I was good at. Took the law, business law, taxation, all of the things, but I didn't do the 4 years. I did these things, and then I went and tested out at a Merrill Lynch and got a job and, made it all happen. And then I went and got some designations that gave me the equivalent of a master's. But all that time, I still felt like imposter, until I had enough experience under my belt to be like, all right, no, I actually have this gift inside me that I can share. So I think that this is an important message to share. In the interviews that I've done, I've met a lot of entrepreneurs that have kind of followed their own path. And you've got people like Michael Dell, who just had this kind of the same angst to get out there and do something, and college wasn't for them. And so anyway, I appreciate the question, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts, because everybody's different on this.
Let's hear from the rocket scientist first.
He's like, don't do it.
Don't do it. No. I mean, the credentials thing is always funny. I mean, on the one hand, I've always said I've never cared about credentials. And then the response is, well, it's normally easy to say when you're a PhD rocket scientist. But I will say, I have been in a room full of other rocket scientists, like 30, 40 of us, right? Not a single person says, do you have a PhD? If you stand up and you say something, if what you've said is pretty cogent, everyone's like, cool, all right.
Buy it.
And if you stand up and you say something really stupid, everyone's like, well, that guy's a dumbass, right? And that's pretty much it. If you say smart stuff, people are like, that guy's pretty,
Yeah.
And if you say dumb stuff, like, oh, that guy's an idiot, right?
That's dumb.
And no one cares. Like, no one, you could be as credentialed as you like. That's fucking stupid. So I don't know, man. Like, I have never witnessed that. The only people that like want to know your credentials, either it's some legal thing and you have to be something or other to file their taxes or whatever it is, or they're an ass and you shouldn't be working with them because they have turned themselves into their credentials. Like, the only thing that, it's the only thing they value is that credential. They themselves are probably struggling with their own identity issues. Yeah. They themselves are probably struggling with their own imposter syndrome. And the only way they've come to rationalize it is to say, well, I got this degree, so I must be valuable. And if you don't have that degree or something, you're not worth it. Otherwise, who cares? Who cares if you have a degree? So many CEOs I have talked to do not care if you go to university. They do not care. They just want you to do the job reasonably well. And if you do that, they don't care. Not a jot. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Got any passion on that?
No, none. Don't do it.
One thing I love about the show is seeing all the unconventional paths that people take and being exposed to that. Like, she said she graduated in 2018 and it's I assume she means from high school. Mm-hmm. And now in 2024, she decides to get a mm-hmm. higher education degree. So what she was doing is getting life experience. And a lot of the people that I look up to have street smarts, have life experience. And I wanted to mention something earlier, that a gift that mentors give mentees is also challenging them. Like if I'm coming to you all with a question, you are really good at this, actually. You challenge me back like, well, are you proud of it? Well, will you co-sign on that? Like on your own question. And so I think that's been a really nice thing for me to learn, is being challenged by having the agency to foster that own belief within myself by being challenged by mentors.
Everybody's looking at you now.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Well, as a college dropout, I'm not sure how much to say.
It's exactly what she
As
wants
a
to-
highly successful
Exactly.
college dropout.
Exactly.
I think school has a purpose, but I think the purpose of school has been so skewed because it worked so well for people that were born in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. School was your ticket to the middle class. That was a guaranteed path. And now we are no longer in you go to school, get good grades, and get a job. Like that doesn't exist anymore. We have AI coming out that's replacing jobs so fast, not necessarily getting rid of jobs, but transferring jobs. I mean, we are in a huge age of transition right now. And we've been in it, and it just shocked me that this is still a thing, because I literally have been out of it for so long. I didn't realize college was still a big thing. But apparently it is. College is not the path to success. Going to school, though, can be very helpful. Looking back, I would have said I would have loved to complete school, but not for a degree, for the lessons and the association that could have come along with it.
Right.
Because I feel that I spent a lot and learned harder lessons, because I've noticed that if you go to the right school, like Harvard or something like that, you kind of have, the value isn't in the Harvard degree, it's with the people that you went to school with.
Yeah.
Because you're going there with
mentorship. Back to mentorship.
So there's a lot of association that could come from college, but I think the majority of people today going to school are just doing it because they believe it's the next step, because that's what everybody's been talking about for so long. And it's honestly ridiculous because it doesn't work.
Well, what happens? You say, Mom, Dad, what should I do? And they're like, well, go to university. That's the
We've been
answer.
saving all these years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's
I would say if you want to be a doctor, please go to university. Like I would like you to
No.
know
I'm just
that.
saying, you could just start cutting on people and see where it gets you. Like,
Well, a lot of the people that are leading medical,
prison is what
right? They do a lot of trial and error, right? And
That's how
on the
that's how
job
they
learning,
started it,
right?
yeah.
So what I would say is that college is no longer the answer. It's not been the answer for many, many years. Probably stopped being the answer in the mid 90s, especially when the internet came out. It was obsolete. I think that there's a huge financial motivation and an engine that's taking place in college. That's the only reason that would make sense to me, because if you look, when I look at a resume, I don't even look at the degree at all. Like, and I hire a lot of people.
I'm actually slightly suspicious of anyone with a 4.0 GPA, because do you know how you get that 4.0 GPA? You have to invest a lot of your own time into gaming the system to get a perfect grade. Right?
Yeah.
No one gets perfect scores. So you have to game the system to do it. You have to extra credit, whatever it is, you have to work extra, right? And so that's it. That was what you got good at, was playing the system, playing the game, right? Versus somebody else that's got like a 3.8, great grade, right? You did extracurriculars. You played football, or you joined the drone club, or whatever it was. So I'm always kind of wary of people with 4.0 grades, because you're just good at gaming systems, and that's not really the point.
Yeah,
There's no innovation or value in that.
Yeah, I guess I do look at the resume for their degree, but actually it's because I'm trying to figure out how old they are. So I usually
what's funny is
the work experience.
I do the same thing when I'm hiring, and oddly enough, sometimes I look at experiences, what you pointed out, how long did they stay at a job and what did they do and all that kind of stuff. Oddly enough, sometimes I just hired somebody and they didn't have a degree, and that's what I liked about it, is because I looked at how long they were at jobs and what they did, and there's a hunger and a fire in that person that's got to prove something, and that's who I want. And so it's really
like me, he's lazy as hell, but I got nothing to prove.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think education is cool, but like my CMO is a fire for education. She's very successful. Her kids are very successful, but she's promoting education not just to go to school.
Right.
Like she's promoting it to be educated, to learn. And, university, some people are really good at learning. I learn through experience personally. I have a hard time listening. And that's one of the reasons why I'll have a mentor in my life that says something, and then I'll still have to try it out myself. Because I don't know, for some reason I have to learn it through experience. But she is really good at promoting school to her kids. And I've seen like all of her kids have a pretty good head on her shoulders. But I think it's because she's promoting it to learn, to be educated. And she's also promoting it to put yourself around those people that want to learn. And it's just a very different mindset of just going to school because that's the next step after high school, because that is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
I love how you put all that, because it is everything you said. I'm 100% behind. It's like, it's not necessary, but there is a use for it. And so it kind of depends on what you want to do. So the takeaway from that is, don't do it because society wants you to do it. Do it for
do it for you. Yeah. I mean, like, that's why I started my first business. I did it for me. It also failed because of me, right? Several other ones did too. But yeah, I would definitely follow your own path. And, when you're 20, 21, it's really hard to know what that path is. I didn't know my path until I was 28, 29. And then 31 is when I started figuring out, oh, I am this person, right? So like, it takes a minute. So I would say, college can help guide, but the structure of college isn't for everyone. I think it's for less and less people every single year.
Makes sense. And on that note, I think we're done with this episode. Thank you very much, Titus, for joining us. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life podcast. We hope Titus Jumper's story and insights have inspired you as much as they have us. Remember, life is uncharted. And it's not about the cards you're dealt, but how you play them. Keep pushing forward, stay relentless, and embrace the journey with all its twists and turns. Even if you experience imposter syndrome along the way, that means you're growing. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Join us next time as we continue to explore the paths less traveled and the stories that redefine success. Thank you again to Titus Jumper, and to all our Gen Z contributors. If you are Gen Z and would like to have your voice heard, visit us at our home on the web at foundingup.com/uncharted_podcast, or check out the show notes. Follow us on Instagram at foundingup and TikTok at founding_up. Until next time, keep exploring the uncharted.